Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss a video from us.
Hello and welcome to the Expert Interview Series, and today we are thrilled to have Radhika Bajoria, founder of Radically Yours, known for her groundbreaking podcast Wiping Out the Norm, with a focus on reshaping the narrative for women leaders globally. With Radically Yours, she's on a mission to help early stage founders, especially women, secure global funding. Her podcast highlights stories of women who've shattered norms in their fields, inspiring countless others. Recognized as one of India's top voices on LinkedIn, Radhika's impact extends worldwide. Through her writing and speaking engagement, she is igniting change and empowering future leaders. We welcome you to the Expert Interview Series, Radhika, and hope our viewers get to learn from your experiences.
Thank you so much, Pooja, for having me on your show. Although I'm not an expert, I'm still a beginner and a learner, but I'll try my best to share my experiences which could benefit your viewers.
Thank you so much. So before we start the interview, just wanted to know, how does it feel to be on the other side since you're yourself taking podcasts?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've always loved to be on the both sides of the table because I get to learn a lot from, people who ask questions. Since I do the same with my guests, so I really love to know as to how do you complete somebody's canvas and paint a picture of their life just by asking the right questions. So these kind of interviews are my opportunities to learn from people like you, so that I could use those kind of skill sets when I interview people from my podcast. So like I told you, I love to learn from my surroundings at all times. So it's good to be on this other side today. And, I wish that I can share some learnings that I have gotten from being on your side of the table, which is interviewing the other women leaders globally. So very excited for the interview today and happy to share some stories of what I've learned so far.
Right. We are excited too. So my first question to you is, if you can share your inspiration behind starting Radically Yours and your podcast, Wiping Out the Norms.
It's a very unconventional, risky path that I've chosen, I must say, because to do something of your own at this age, it is extremely challenging since you see a lot of your peer group sitting with a great check in their hands from great companies and having a great work-life balance. But you're on the other side of the table, you are working for your own vision, which only you can see until it gets fructified into something substantial. You have to motivate your team on a daily basis. You have to motivate your own self. You have to look after the money for the company plus for the employees who are working for you. And you start absolutely from scratch. There's no guiding light. It is absolutely you and people who support you and your vision. And there's a very thin line of difference, by the way, between people who are called as lunatics and visionaries. Visionaries are the ones who succeed on their vision. And people who see the same vision and do not succeed are called lunatics in our society, unfortunately. So I really don't know which way I will be known as. But for me, the journey has been equally fruitful because of the kind of learnings I get to hear from people around me every day. Radically Yours started because I was working in a law firm, Resolute Partners, and one of the founders approached us, and Ruchir asked me to connect him to Silicon Valley investors because I had a good follower base on LinkedIn, and I was already recognized as a top voice back then in 2022. And I really didn't believe I could pull this through. But like I told you, sometimes surrounding yourself with good people helps you decide faster and take actions on your strengths, which you cannot see yourself. So that's what I did. And to my surprise, 8 out of 10 people replied. And the founder got connected to those investors, which his investment banker himself couldn't connect, sitting here in India. So that's when I realized that if I have this power and influence right there in my hand at my disposal, why cannot I use it for something better than just promoting stories of people on LinkedIn? I wanted to bring some action into lives of these founders when it comes to raising capital from global investors because they don't have the access to it. It's very challenging. And when I was doing this, I realized that how more challenging it is for women entrepreneurs because of two reasons. Firstly, they are conservative in their pitches at early stages, at least. And I'm talking here generally. Of course, there are exceptional examples, but women generally do not like to say something which they haven't done it yet. So for them to pitch a 10-year vision and to say that I will achieve this number of growth and I can be a unicorn in the next 10 years, that is very difficult for women to say. And sometimes investors don't find confidence into that.
Correct.
Because of this reason, I felt that it's important for us to educate more women onto this particular skill set of how to pitch themselves and their businesses and how to get them the access to the right kind of people who can invest into their businesses. So that's how I started this podcast.
Okay.
Because it's not feasible for everybody to meet each other in person. And especially when you're talking about the global investor base, you cannot just fly down. It requires a lot of capital for them to, invest and go there to listen to somebody's journey and take inspiration. So I said that, okay, if I have so many people wanting to hear stories, and if I have the follower base that I can connect with the bigger leaders and bring out their stories on my platform, why can't I do that? That's how this show, Wiping Out the Norm, came into existence because I was told, and I personally as well believe that there are very less female role models to look up to, especially in the field of finance. Of course, the number of women CXOs and women as board members are growing in different industries, but particularly in private equity, it was like bare minimum. Like mostly, if there are 100 men, only you would find 2 to 3 women in that particular industry. So I thought that I want to wipe this norm out and I want to showcase that we have so many women across the globe. And I really think that biases can only be shared when stories are told more and more. And unless it's told openly, people won't be able to relate to it, because news channels today, for example, if I'm speaking to you on CNBC, I won't be able to give you my personal story. I will only give you a view on the kind of work I'm doing. So personalized journeys of women leaders was something really missing in our media landscape. And that's why I thought that I really need to do something in this and create a niche for myself as well as an impact on the journeys of other younger women who are just starting about. So that's how I started the show. And, today when I post stories of women from tier 2 and tier 3 towns message me that, after hearing your podcast, I got inspired to, fight against the decisions of my family, or somebody who was telling me that, okay, only XYZ is meant for you. You cannot dream bigger, or you cannot go abroad to study and settle down for work. So when they hear my podcast and the stories shared on the podcast, they really get that fire of inspiration from other women leaders that, okay, if they did it, I can also do it. And I think that's the best impact that we are creating with our show, and our motivation now is that these women should get recruited in the dream companies where they want to get recruited to. So, of course, it's basis the talent, but we're trying to also give that pool of accessibility to these women leaders so that they can also, work in, suppose, like Washington, New York, or, London, all these cities beyond India and, of course, within India as well. So that's the main mission with which we started and with which we are continuing still.
Right. So we can say, radically yours is more like the online Shark Tank for women.
Yeah. You're so right on that. In fact, my mentor keeps telling me that you can create your own radical Shark Tank, and get so many women the access to capital and the mentorship that they need. So we do have this in our minds, and we will plan something soon to scale this in a much bigger way. Of course, like you said, we are doing this indirectly somehow to our show, but we want to do it more concrete, where actually women get seen their pitches are heard and they get funding through us. So we'll try to do something, and maybe your line inspired me more now to think about it.
So I think it is more than helping out others. It is rewarding to see that people are coming up to you, getting inspired by your podcast, and breaking through all the norms that are there. So great work.
Thank you. Still a long way to go.
So, as someone deeply involved in helping startup raise capital globally, what are some of the common challenges that you've observed, especially for female founders?
Yeah, I'll put this into three buckets to answer this more, concisely. First is that women founders do not really know how to scale. For example, if a woman is running a bakery from her house, and if she's serving, suppose, 10 customers a day, she will be very happy doing that, and she will be running a profitable enterprise.
Right.
But if now she has to think of selling 100 cakes a day, not just from her house, but also from other distribution points in her city and outside her city, now that scaling up will be challenging for her because that was never in her vision to begin with. And that's where we face this challenge that women don't think of scaling up in a way that they should for the kind of businesses that they're doing, and I don't know why this is there within us, but somehow it's very inherent nature that we are very satisfied with what we get. If we are getting good profits in what we are doing, we don't want to burn money to expand and scale up. But I think that is a very crucial aspect, to burn money right now to expand, and then of course think of profitability at some point in time. That definitely should be in the vision. But that is one challenge that we are seeing particularly for women-founded businesses, more so in smaller towns because the exposure there is lesser. The problem that we're seeing is that women do not get to connect with other like-minded women who are doing similar businesses. They only see men around them who have done similar businesses in a much bigger way. And that's where the gap comes, and it is very natural for us to think that, okay, being a woman, our lives are different, of course, than a man. Our biological clocks are different. Our physicalities are different. So, of course, there's no reason to say that we both are the same and we should both go the same way. There are differences, and we recognize the differences. So, we're trying to solve this number one challenge by bringing women together in the same room so that they can converse together. And I think even one conversation can really change your mind fully. Like today, if I'm speaking to you, I will really get motivated enough to really think about my business in a much bigger way. Like if I was at 1x, I will think of my business in a 10x manner. My lens of viewing my business will just expand suddenly, and I'll start to see the world with a much broader lens. So I think that exposure, second, is lacking for women. That how do they connect to such like-minded women? And the third challenge is that they are not able to get the capital to, scale up. So even if suppose today I decide that I want to go global, I don't have the money. How will I, even think of actioning my idea?
Right.
So I think these are the three challenges. It starts with the thought, then second, it starts with the exposure, and third, the access to capital. So these three are the biggest challenges that we are also trying to solve for. And more so in the cities, we are finding the solutions to both all the three challenges. There are events today that are held, webinars today that are done to give knowledge to people as to how they can do it. And thirdly, there are a lot of pitching sessions like Shark Tank that take place in closed door circles also, where women are given chances to showcase their business to investors who will really give them the money that is required to scale up. So I think firstly, your mindset needs to be firm enough that I really need to scale up, because it all starts from you and it all starts from your thought that, okay, I want to make this bigger. And it's fine totally that if you want to run a small shop also, sabko unicorn banne ka zarurat nahi hai. But I think if you have that ambition, you really need to work towards it. And I agree that the surroundings wasn't equipped enough to give women the kind of access they deserve. But right now, times are changing, and we are happy to be a part of that time through Radically Yours and through our initiative, Women in Private Enterprises. But I'm very happy to also see that there are globally so many organizations like this who are helping women. So I'm sure that this question that you've asked, that what are the challenges, these questions won't exist 10, 20 years from now, because women will already be scaling up and leading their businesses to greater heights.
Right. Of course, the times have changed, and we've seen women rise up. There are, women leaders who've taken their place, and they are ruling the world. But still, we need to push those who need that kind of push. And of course, you creating that environment is fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with your background in strategic communication and bridging the gap between global investors and Indian companies, what do you believe is the most crucial element for fostering successful partnership?
Yeah, I think the key to good partnerships is relationships. How deeply do you connect with a person on a human level? Of course, work comes first, and that's the starting point of you to get to know someone.
Mhm.
But you will only be able to, keep your relationship for a longer time if you're able to connect with a person as a human and not as a professional at the end of the day.
Right.
Because work can only be one topic, but if you don't have a personality of your own, you will be very transactional with that person, and you will only talk work. You
Right.
should also be able to talk to them about their hobbies, about what they do on the weekends, how they spend time with their family, how they view life as a miracle, and what is it that they're doing in their life to make it worthwhile while they are on this planet. Some of these deep philosophical questions are also very important for you to forge very strong relationships. And I'll tell you why, because not everybody is doing this. And it's a game of demand and supply, right? Wherever the supply is lesser, the demand will be higher. The supply of people who are bridging and building these kind of human relationships are very less. And that's why the demand for such kind of people is extremely high in the market. And if you see, there are thousands and thousands of people who are there to talk to you for work and only work. They won't put in the time and effort to talk to you beyond work, because for them, it's only about themselves and not about you. And that's where the game changes. How empathetic you are as a leader or as a person really defines the kind of relationship you will build with people in the long term. And those are the kind of relationships which help you really build that network which is needed to scale up your business, to live a life with good companionship, with good friend circle. And I think at the end, it's one life that we're living it. So I really think that it should not just be work. People are stuck today in this feeling that I just want to get my work done and get rid of that person. It doesn't work like that. You have to genuinely be interested in knowing that person. And the chances of somebody not liking you is way higher if you don't like them. Quite often we think that I don't like this person and still think that this person will like us. But
Right.
that's not the case. If you don't like someone, chances are 101% that the other person also doesn't like you. So it always works both the sides, and it's a very powerful topic on how to build a network and good relationships to sustain in any kind of field. But that's a topic for another day. We can chat about that in depth. I can go on and on, because I recently gave a TEDx topic on this specific topic of power of networking at a college in Nasik where I studied.
Okay.
So they had called me back as an alumni to give a talk in their college. So I extensively spoke on this. But yeah, I think if you don't have a personal connection, you cannot have a good professional relationship as well.
So, as we see, of course, deviating a little bit as we talk about networking, you have a lot of LinkedIn followers. How was the journey? I mean, how did you get to connect?
Yeah, I mean, it's a journey of more than 5 years.
Okay.
And I think that it's only hard work done consistently every day that pays off eventually. So I think it's a result of that, nothing else. And I got started because I was a part of the e-cell of my college in Bombay. And because it was an entrepreneurship cell, you had the best minds around you who were a part of your team. And when you are surrounded by those sharp people, you also feel like upgrading yourself.
Mm.
And I was working closely with one of my friends who was quite active on LinkedIn. And I saw him grow very well. And the kind of recognition that he was getting from the corporate world for the content he wrote was massive at that age, because younger people usually do not get the attention of corporate leaders unless they're doing something different. And when you're doing it on LinkedIn, you're anyways different because the world is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So you're anyways unique if you started on LinkedIn first. And this friend of mine pushed me to start writing on LinkedIn because I was very confused in my career. I really didn't know what to do. And he told me that it's a good starting point for you to write on LinkedIn. Of course, it wasn't a cakewalk. It took me 6 months of self-conviction that I should do this. Because when he told me this, it wasn't my idea, right? It was his idea of me doing it. So until it became my idea, my passion, my purpose, I wasn't getting the energy and the excitement to do it. And that's what my nature has also been always, that if I don't find a purpose of doing something by myself, I cannot do it. Even if somebody else is showing me the direction, because I will eventually get bored. It's not something coming from my within self. So after 6 months, I attended a boot camp competition. It was in one of the colleges in Bombay.
Mhm.
And there I saw teenagers way younger than me,
Okay.
ruling the world of entrepreneurship. They knew in and out of every business. And that's where I thought that I am lacking so much behind. The world is moving so fast. Everybody is clear of what they want to do. If I don't know what I want to do, at least I should hear people who are my well-wishers, who are giving me the advice to what to, as to what to do in my life. So that's when I took his advice very seriously after 6 months, that, okay, now it's my time to start writing. I wasted enough time of not doing anything. My college also, I used to bunk lectures, although I look like a nerd with these big specs, which I had back in my college as well. And I used to be a very shy kid, but I really wouldn't enjoy studying at all. But eventually, when I started writing on LinkedIn, it really gave me a lot of peace of mind. And I really got the answers to my questions, which were unanswered for a longest time. Because when you write, you sit peacefully, your mind is to your own self, it's not wandering here and there. That's when you realize that what you really want, and writing more than LinkedIn or anything, I think just writing and sitting with myself gave me a lot. So because I had regained that focus, which I'd lost in that crowd of my college or all those chaos, I think because I got that focus, I was able to really do everything after my college until now. And whenever there are days when I don't write, I really feel chaotic. And the days when I write, I feel at peace and I know what I'm doing. So I found my peace in writing, and that happened to be on LinkedIn coincidentally. And because I was loving it so much, results were shown. I think whatever you do, if you love it from your heart and you're doing it for yourself, not for the world, not for the followers or likes, I think the results eventually show up. But not to deny the fact that people who do it for followers don't get it. Of course they do, because that's their goal. But I'm also saying that people who don't have that goal but are still doing because of the enjoyment that they get in the process, they also get the results and have an outcome of this kind of a process where I did it out of just sheer excitement.
We are glad that you finally found your tone, and we are able to hear you and your vision.
Yeah.
Right. So, as we talk about vision, how do you envision the future of women in entrepreneurship and venture capital, both in India and globally?
Yeah, I think like Modi ji was recently addressing during his speech at Startup Mahakumbh in Delhi,
Right.
that we have more than 40% of women founders in the overall startup ecosystem. And I think we don't have India has this kind of mentality of can do. It doesn't have a default pessimism mode where the global, counterparts are. where the world is saying that, this is not possible, that is not possible. But India today is at a point where everybody is saying that, we can be the biggest leader in renewables, we can be the biggest leader even in oil and gas, mining, startups, everything. So the sentiment is very positive in our country. And I think with that sentiment, a lot of new businesses are coming up. And media has a very important role to play in this, because if you see after Shark Tank, the number of businesses which have been incorporated have increased more. And women businesses have also been increased much more and more. And when you see, like I told you, when you see a like-minded women coming up on TV, publicly talking about her business, you also feel motivated to do more and more. So I think because of the Shark Tank, the revolution has started where more women are thinking of scaling up their businesses. So I think in the next 10 to 12 years, we will see a lot of, inputs by a lot of women-owned businesses. And our economy, I think there are a lot of statistics that say that women make up to like 85% of purchasing decision in consumer goods. But not even 80% of employees who are decision makers in these consumer companies are women. So this is like a very distorted ratio which is at play right now. And I think it will change by more women leaders getting hired in these decision making positions, and by more, disposable income. There are a lot of things in the market that are happening, like the purchasing power has increased. And because, like I told you, most consumers are women, they are making those household decisions. And this GDP of India is really going to increase massively because of this kind of, outplay that has been going around. And if you see, like media, every magazine today is focusing on top 50 women business leaders, or, every award now wants to give awards to different women who has achieved in sports, in different activities in business, whatever it is. So I think the world, and this theme of Republic Day this year was also Nari Shakti.
Nari Shakti, right.
I think everybody is focusing on women. So I think it's the age now. It was always the age, but now it's a recognized age,
Right.
where women, businesses and women are given due importance for the work and the efforts that they're putting in. So I think it's really shaping up well. But I think with the global influence and with the kind of work that the government is doing to push more and more women, I think it is going to change. And like I told you, it's all about sentiment at the end of the day, because we are a democratic country and everybody relies on the moods and the expressions of each other. Like COVID to पूरी दुनिया में ही हुआ था, पर इंडिया में ही we had done all those candle,
And we are
burning
banging
of the
the-
candles and banging of the utensils. So as a nation, it truly shows that how much aligned are we with our government, with the policies that we have, and how much do we get influenced by it. So I think government is doing a great job in getting women more access to network, capital, and everything that they need to scale up. And I think there are organizations within India and outside also that are doing great job. But a lot of studies are also given online, so I won't go on telling about it. But there, BCG ka report hai on women-owned businesses, how they make higher revenues and are better, business makers than compared to men. So maybe the audience can read that report and get some more information on this.
Right. So cheers to women empowerment then.
Yeah.
Right. So, what role do you believe mentorship plays in fostering the success of early stage founders? And how does Radically Yours facilitate mentorship opportunities?
Yeah, I think I can say this with my personal experience that when I was mentored by Ruchir, it was really life changing for me, because at that young age, and we're seeing a lot of young founders come up today who have never worked in MNCs or who have never seen how work environment is, but they are so passionate about their idea that they just want to go out there in the market, build a team, get capital and expand.
Right.
So I was also very young when I started. I really didn't know how to build a team, lead with the team. I was working in silos, working just by myself. I didn't know how to work together with a team. So all these things I got coached by my mentor saying that, okay, this is how you need to talk to your team every day, tell them your vision. Your vision should be their sense of vision as well. They need to have that belongingness within your organization as if it is their company and not just your company. So all these softer things is something that I learned from my mentor. And I think that is something which is very, very important for all entrepreneurs today to learn. Either you learn it through YouTube, which is also your mentor. I don't think so. You need a human who can be your mentor. Of course, emotions do help when you're having a human interaction, but not to say that if you don't have a human, you stop. And today, if you reach out to people, they're very happy to help. If you have a solid idea in mind, of course, everybody's conscious of their time where they are putting in efforts. But if you have something substantial, everybody will help you. And I think having a mentor is important in today's times, because if you are a person who gets carried away, you need somebody to bring you back to the vision board, you know. And if you get carried away too many times, entrepreneurship is not for you, because entrepreneurs are really clear thinkers and go-getters. Their mind cannot be cluttered. That is not the kind of luxury that they can afford, you know, that their mind is going everywhere. If you are that kind of a person, I think a good job with a stable monthly income is very good for you. So I think to know yourself first and then get into the field is very important. And if you don't know yourself, get a mentor who will tell you who you really are. Because if you directly jump into the business just to be on the glamorous side of things, it won't really work out. And today, a lot of people are doing that, you know, just to be known as a startup founder, not to actually create a business out of that startup. So if you really think you can create a business out of something, go ahead and get advice of as many people as possible, because you only grow as much as you speak to more and more minds. It's at the end of the day, business is what? It's about dealing with your people. The people could be your customers, your clients, your advisors. So you have to be an outgoing person. You cannot be an introvert and run a business.
Right, you need to have your footing right, only then you should jump into entrepreneurship, otherwise it won't help.
Yeah. So I really think you should first find a mentor within yourself. Try to motivate your inner self by yourself, and then find people who will guide you. Because if you rely on other voices, and if you're dependent on those voices, you can only sustain for a short time. And entrepreneurship is a lonely journey, and we have to accept that. You cannot really be all happy and high at all times. It's going to be very difficult. And that's why it's important to build a right team with the right co-founder who can complement you on those skill sets and keep you, you know, focused on the vision that you have set yourself for.
So a lot of advice and a lot of wise words, but still, what advice do you know want to give to our viewers who are aspiring for entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think there is one question which every successful man asks himself,
Man or
and that
woman, both?
question, a successful person, I would say, not a man. Good, you pointed that out. So, yeah, and that question, if you really give it power, it can change your life, because, like I told you, time is very limited.
Right.
And that question is, you have to ask yourself every time, whatever you do, saying that what's in it for me? Because if you don't do that, you'll end up wasting time with a lot of people, with a lot of your own thoughts, and with a lot of naysayers who think that what you're doing is not right. So I think if you are very clear with what you want, you will only attract those right kind of people. Because, you know, in early stages, you will be advised to meet many people. But if you keep meeting those people without having an objective, without thinking that what's in it for you after meeting that person, if there is no end objective or an outcome which you expect, I don't think so it's worthwhile of going that path. And that's how successful people really rule their time. They know what to say no to, where to go, and where to spend their time. Because time is a very important and a precious commodity. If you have lost it, you will lose it in business. Because today your idea can be very big. Tomorrow, if somebody replicates it and does it much faster, that person will be successful. So you're always on that clock of how you're doing it faster with your execution capabilities. And if you have mastered the ability to spend your time, you can do almost everything in your life. And to master that, you have to question this every time, that what's in it for me. But this only applies in professional life, not in personal life. Because in personal life, if you talk to people thinking that मुझे क्या मिलेगा इससे बात करके, you're not going to develop relationships. So you have to balance that and maintain a very thin line of difference between the personal world and the professional world.
Thank you so much. I think we can continue further as much. I know there's a lot of questions that I have, but we have to conclude here. Hopefully, a lot of people who are going to see this are going to learn about entrepreneurship, about life as well. And if people want to really approach you, they will be doing it. We'll post your LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, surely I'll be happy to speak to people. I never let go of any message, unnoticed. I read every message and try to reply to as many as I can.
That's the I think quality of a true leader.
Yeah, I mean, people build you up, especially in the digital world. So you have to give respect to those people. If you ignore those people only, you will be ignored one day. Eventually, karma comes back.
lot of things to learn. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss a video from us.